Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of my 5 takeaways in the SEC. As always, I am your host, Matthew Miller. Can you please do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe button. Also, give me a follow on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And again, I am here live with Texas on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm also live Tuesdays with my boy Tyler at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's jump into this right away, guys. So it was another busy week in the SEC, and let's just start off with my number one takeaway. UGA can win a natty if. And my if is if the defense can play like that, guys. That defensive performance last night was otherworldly. You're going up against an offensive line that I said in the preview video, I thought it was one of the best offensive lines in college football in years. I still believe that. I think it was a completely bad night by that offensive line. The reason I say that is this team still has 5 starters that are going to play in the NFL and get drafted in the NFL. I think Kelvin Banks is getting too much of the blame here. I don't think he was the issue at all. I think the right side was way worse. But let's stick to Georgia. Javon Walker, fabulous game. Multiple tackles for loss. I believe he had 3 sacks. He was all over the damn place. They had him running, or they had him blitzing. They had him running sideline to sideline. They had him spying at some points when Arch Manning came to the game. The closing speed he had on that one play to bring Arch Manning to the ground was insane. Michael Williams also had his best game of the year by far up until this point. I even sent out a tweet going into this game. Plays like Tarzan, or looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane because of stats. Go look up his stats pre-Texas. Not very good. And that's his career. I'm not saying this year because I know Tyler will say it was the injury. His career has been underwhelming, honestly, but not last night. He lived up to the hype last night. Very good performance from him. They were flying around the football. And then shout out to Glenn Schumann. That game plan was filthy. There were multiple plays, guys, where they disguised things so well. Quinn Ewers had no idea what was coming. Literally no idea. And Quinn Ewers had a bad night in multiple ways, but you still have to give credit to Georgia. So if they can have that game plan going forward and execute it as well as they did, I think they can win the national championship, because when you look around the landscape of college football, it's a down year, especially at the quarterback position. The only quarterback to me that's going to be in the playoffs that's going to be head and shoulders the best quarterback is Cam Ward. The problem is Miami has no defense whatsoever. So who knows? And the reason why I thought Texas could win the national championship is because Quinn Ewers had taken that next step. He showed in the Michigan game he could move around side to side and then step up in the pocket. You did not see any of that. It was all out the window last night. So definitely give a lot of credit to Georgia, but also Quinn Ewers needs to take some responsibility for that. But if Georgia can play that way defensively, definitely can win the national title. Carson Beck is who he is. I thought he's overrated the whole time. He's clearly shown that. He was terrible last night. And people are going to say, well, there was drop passes. Guys, there was like 4 or 5 drops. There wasn't as many as you think, and it would have added up to about 50 to 60 yards. Even with that, he's averaging like 5.5 yards per attempt. That is abysmal. That is really bad. And Texas defense also deserves enough credit, or deserves a lot of credit for that. But still, Georgia was special last night, and if they continue that defensive performance, I definitely think they can win the national championship, even with the lackluster offense. Who has a better chance to last at head coach? So this is a question I didn't think I would be asking at the beginning of the year. There's 5 guys actually. Hugh Freeze, Brent Venables, Mark Stoops, Billy Napier, Sam Pittman. Who lasts longer? I ask you that. Who lasts longer? In what order? I don't think any of those guys has a very good chance at staying at their respective programs very long. And I think there's a real chance in 3 years all of them are gone. I think there's a real chance of that. I'm not even going to put Shane Beamer in that category because I think he's safe this year. And I think if they have like a 6-6, 7-5 year, which they'll have some defense returning. They'll have Lenora Sellers returning. They should have Nick Harper returning. They should be able to go 6-6, 7-5 again. And South Carolina honestly should be able to see that, take that, and respect that, because you're not doing better than that. If I had to rank how quickly I believe these coaches will be fired, I think I would go Brent Venables 1, Billy Napier 2, Sam Pittman 3, Mark Stoops 4, and Hugh Freeze 5. I do believe Hugh Freeze will last longest because I do believe he will have enough NIL money to play with, and they will get some really good playmakers in the portal, especially at the quarterback position, some players on defense as well. You could flip Billy Napier and Brent Venables if you want to. Those are number 1 and number 2, either order. Brent Venables ain't lasting at Oklahoma. He's just not. Billy Napier can save his job for so long. He had a great performance versus Kentucky, and they've gotten better. They truly have. And that's a sign of a guy that he's at least making adjustments, learning on the job. Brent Venables has not gotten better. If in fact he's gotten worse, and people are going to point to the 10-2 season last year, guys, that was smoke and mirrors. Look at the schedule. The schedule was easy. You had a different quarterback who you kicked out of town. You ran out of town. And then you didn't go out and get the proper offensive coordinator. So to me, he's number one for me. But again, if you want to argue Billy Napier, that's definitely possible. I still think Sam Pittman can save his job this year. If they go 7-5, I think he keeps his job. Mark Stoops, unless they go like 3-9, I don't think he gets fired, but possibility. I think Hugh Freeze is last in line for me, but I'd love to know your guys' comments on that, because I think all 5 of those guys I really believe will be gone in the next 3 years. 4 out of 5 at least. I would be willing to wager a hefty sum of money that 4 out of 5 of those guys are gone in 3 years. So what would that be? 2027. At the end of the 2027 year, I believe 4 out of 5 of those guys will not be at their head or at their respective jobs. That's my opinion on that. Number 3, LSU defense might be good enough to win the SEC. So coming into this year, I said LSU was going to go 9-3, and I thought it was because their schedule was semi-soft, and they have a really good offense with the defense lacking. I was right about that early on. And then something clicked in that bye week. Guess what? Harold Perkins got hurt. I think that was the main thing. And they have been completely different on the offense side of the ball. They held a really good South Alabama offense to under 20 points. They held Ole Miss to 20-something points. Pretty good effort there overall versus a good offense. And then 10 points to Arkansas. So this defense to me is good enough to win the SEC. I think the only concern now is, can Garrett Nussmeier clean up the turnovers? If he does that, they can win the SEC, especially in a semi-down year all around in college football, and especially the SEC. I think Georgia's going to be there after what I've seen. I think it comes down to Texas A&M, LSU, and Tennessee. I think those are your 4 contenders now, because Bama's not making it with 2 losses, especially the way they look. They could lose another game. Now, they could also play spoiler, because they do play LSU, and that could be very interesting. They all also Texas A&M and LSU play each other this week, so that's a big game. And obviously Texas and Texas A&M play at the end of the season. Tennessee plays Georgia, so honestly, that's actually a knockout game there too. But it'd be really hard for me to see Tennessee beat Georgia this year. I just don't see that happening. That offense versus the defense I saw last night, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, honestly, because Tennessee has a very good defense. So it's going to be very interesting, but I think LSU does have a good enough defense to get to the SEC title game. And if they get to the SEC title game, they're probably going to be in the college football playoff. So I would have been wrong on them. I'd said Missouri and LSU are the 2 most overrated teams coming into the year in the SEC. I was right about one of them. I don't think I'm going to be right about LSU. So props to them for fixing it. And I knew they would fix it eventually. Like, I thought it was going to be next year, because Bo Davis, great defensive line coach. Baker, great defensive coordinator. And Brian Kelly usually fixes things pretty well. I just didn't think it'd be this year. Number 4, kind of hit on this a little bit. I think Oklahoma might be the worst team in the SEC. They got dog walked by South Carolina. It was 21-0 before you could blink, basically. And they just look poorly coached. They do not execute well. They don't have that much talent on the offensive side of the ball, especially with all the wide receivers out. And the defense is overrated. The defense is good, but it's not great. I said after the Red River rivalry, Texas has a better defense than Oklahoma, and I think that's pretty clear they do. And Oklahoma just looks completely lost. And the problem is, guys, again, you chose to go with Jackson Arnold over Dillon Gabriel. You told Dillon Gabriel, I want to go this path because I believe he has a higher upside. That is why you chose Jackson Arnold. Do not let them lie to you, Oklahoma fans. They chose Jackson Arnold over Dillon Gabriel. They then chose Michael Hawkins over Jackson Arnold, and then went back to Jackson Arnold, burned his red shirt. You can tell he's kind of pissed and sad about that after the game if you go listen to that interview. So it's just a complete shit show down in Norman. I do believe Brent Venables, I don't think he's a good coach. I never thought he was a good coach. He's a fantastic defensive coordinator, but I thought he has been promoted to the point of incompetence. You see this all the time because people believe you're a good coordinator, you can be a good coach. There are 2 completely different set of skill sets. There's actually some coordinators that are probably pretty bad coordinators that might be better head coaches, and vice versa. And you see that with Brent Venables. He's just not good. He's kind of like Will Muschamp, honestly. Really good defenses, bad offenses, and people are going to point to last year. Well, guess what? It's 2 out of 3 years it's been bad, and I don't see it getting better. And guess what? There's a real chance if this recruiting class falls apart that you're going to have to fire him at the end of this year. So that's my takeaway from that. Number 5, can Missouri just go away? Missouri is not a good football team. If Missouri played Any other schedule other than theirs and Texas A&M's, they would be 7-5, 8-4. Even Texas schedule, which is soft, they would lose. I think they would have lost to Michigan in week 2. I don't think they're that good. They got dog walked by A&M, who I think is a good, solid football team, but they're not great. They're like the 12th, the 15th best team in the country. Maybe a little bit better than that. Maybe 8 to 12, but they're still not great. And you got dog walked at home. I don't know why they're ranked. What is their best win? Doesn't make any sense to me. They were in a close game with Boston College. They were in a close game with Vanderbilt. They were in a close game with Auburn. This is not a good football team. And for the love of God, if this team goes 10-2 and makes the college football playoff, they are going to get dog walked on national television. Their defense is awful. Brady Cook is nice, but he's not great. And their offensive playmakers, other than Luther Burden and Theo Weiss, are pretty bad. So just go away. That's all I'm asking for the college football landscape. Just go away. I do not want to watch you play meaningful games because you will lose them and you will get beat to death in them. And that's why Tyler and I did not include them in the SEC possibility of winning the championship, because they can't win the championship. This team is not good enough to win the SEC championship. So please, Missouri, just go away. Thank you guys again. This has been another edition of SEC Takeaways from week number 8 this time. We are more than halfway through the season. But again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below and join us Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time with me and my boy Tyler as we go live previewing and recapping the following week of SEC games. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much for being here.